For decades, the geopolitical reality of the Middle East was anchored by two seemingly immovable pillars: the overwhelming deterrence of the American military machine and the unquestioned tactical dominance of Israel. That structure cracked in the summer of 2026. After months of slogging through its Lebanese campaign, Israel launched a heavy bombing campaign on a neighborhood in Beirut, crossing a line that Tehran had publicly declared non-negotiable. Instead of utilizing regional proxies or launching a telegraphed counterattack, Iran launched a direct ballistic missile strike on Israeli territory. It was the first time in history that Iran had struck Israel preemptively, without their own territory being hit first. In strategic terms, this is known as escalation dominance. It means one side has achieved such tactical control that they can strike punitively at will, because their opponent knows the cost of a full-scale response is too high to bear. By treating the United States and Israel as standard regional adversaries, hitting them for violations rather than waiting to respond, Iran effectively challenged the global security doctrine that had governed the region for half a century. The shift began on the ground in Lebanon. For the first time in the current conflict, Israeli forces were forced to pull back from a contested position in the village of Dibani. Hezbollah had mastered the use of cheap, explosive FPV drones, making the ridge too costly for the ideas of the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. A $200 million command center was rendered unusable, marking a direct hit on the anchor of American naval power in the region. Washington and Israel responded by bombing the granite mountains around Yazd, but the campaign failed to silence Iran's missiles. They were housed in missile cities carved deep into the mountain. Western forces held air superiority, but they were effectively bombing empty rock, while Iranian forces continued firing from the tunnels below. These tactical failures coincided with a sudden crisis in American hardware. The F-35 program saw its mission-ready rates drop to 25% across the fleet. The supply chain became so strained that the Marine Corps accepted delivery of 6 new fighter jets with no radars installed. Between a crippled headquarters and a fleet of jets unable to fly, the hardware that once guaranteed American security in the region appeared increasingly fragile. The tactical blind spots exposed by Iran made a large-scale intervention look increasingly risky. Iran then used its naval position to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. When the U.S. attempted to use a corridor through Omani territorial waters to sneak tankers out, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard deployed speedboats to block the route, forcing all commercial traffic to follow Tehran's transit orders. To stabilize global markets during the blockade, Washington drained the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to its lowest point since 1983. The second metric shows Cushing, Oklahoma crude dropping to 20 million barrels, where pipeline pressure fails and the supply chain seizes up. Iran was willing to risk a global economic collapse to maintain its blockade. Washington, facing a systemic failure of its own energy infrastructure, was forced to prioritize its domestic economy over its military objectives in the Gulf. This economic pressure fractured the U.S.-Israel alliance. With national elections approaching in both countries, midterms in the U.S., and a critical vote for the Likud party, political survival began to outweigh strategic cooperation. The rift became public through leaked communications. Facing the potential for a domestic depression, the U.S. president cursed out the Israeli prime minister in a phone call, calling his refusal to stand down crazy and accusing him of putting the alliance at risk. Facing an economic clock that was running out, Washington moved to settle the conflict. Through secret back-channel negotiations in Qatar, the U.S. drafted a memorandum of understanding that made significant concessions to Tehran in exchange for reopening the waterway. Central to the deal was the creation of a $300 billion Reconstruction and Development Fund. Backed by companies across the U.S., Asia, and the Gulf, this vehicle provides direct credit and financing for Iranian energy and transport infrastructure. For decades, the United States enforced transit rights in the Persian Gulf as a matter of course. Now it was facilitating hundreds of billions in development funds to maintain that same access. As the U.S. began a diplomatic retreat, Iran experienced a massive surge in national unity. Having survived the most intense period of military and economic pressure in its modern history, the state emerged with its leadership firmly intact. Tehran is now moving to capitalize on this window by accelerating the international north-south transport corridor. This map shows the path connecting Russia and India directly through Iranian soil, creating a trade route that avoids Western-controlled choke points. Simultaneously, construction has begun on a new rail corridor linking Iran to China through Afghanistan. By utilizing a uniform railway gauge, Iran is physically integrating its economy into the massive logistical networks of the East. The current ceasefire offers a breathing space to reorganize. Iran is using this period to finalize its transition into a new global trade order, ensuring it can weather future conflicts through regional integration rather than Western approval. The 60-day conflict did not erase Western influence, but it ended the era where that influence was free. By raising the cost of intervention to an unsustainable level, Iran has established itself as a primary architect of the region's economic and military future.